You know how they say there are alligators in the sewers?
What could be greater than playing a game of alligator?
I'm rooting for the crocodile. I hope he swallows your friends whole.
Damn alligator bit my hand off.
Oh my God!
This thing rules. The thing rules.
Oh, hey, what's up? I'm Brian Altano.
And I'm Max Scoville.
This is a show where we discuss something we love,
Unpack why we love it,
explain where it came from,
try to remember our first impressions of it,
share our weird stories about it.
maybe learn something new about it along the way.
But first and foremost, we're here to celebrate the fact that this thing rules.
Today, we're talking about alligators.
You texted me the other day and you're like, you want to do an episode on alligators? And I was like, fuck yeah, immediately. And then I was thinking, like, what's the difference between crocodiles and alligators? And the answer is there's no water slide called an alligator mile.
There's an alligator kilometer.
Yeah,
That's what they call it in Europe. They call it the alligator kilometer.
But crocodile mile was this thing. I don't know if they make it anymore. It's basically like, what if you could buy a long tarp, right? And I think some of them, like, you could hook a hose up to it and it would shoot water all over it. But other ones, you just put a hose at the end of it. It was just like a strip of plastic that you put in your yard.
No, it was a slip and slide, but it was predatory.
Yeah, I like how I used every word possible to describe a slip and slide except for slip and slide.
Yeah, the slip and slide, it's the eyes are on the side of the head, which means that it's not a predator. But the crocodile mile, it had the eyes closer to the front because it was a hunting yard water. What do you even call those? Pool toys? They're not pool toys.
It's sprinkler. It's if you don't have a pool, it's a toy.
Sprinkler. Adventures.
Nobody with a pool has a crocodile mile.
No. I like that I was like, let's make an episode about alligators, and you hit the ground running. You hit the ground running and then fall on your ass and slide across the yard, which is all wet and covered in crocodile tarps.
You run, you slide, you hit the bump and take a dive is what I did, actually.
Okay. So we have a very special, we have had some special alligator adventures.
We have.
I don't think anyone else has ever made a podcast quite like this, because the two of us had a special alligator day together where we went in the water with an alligator.
We have had several special alligator days in Florida, and despite that, I think that you and I probably know about as much, or maybe even a little less, about alligators than the average fourth grader. Like, I think we learned some stuff for sure, but there are children that know more about alligators because they learned about them that day.
100%. Yeah, that's very, very true. There's kids out there who have copies of zoo books that they've read cover to cover.
Yep.
We aren't fake alligator fans. We went and spent a day hanging out with an alligator specialist, and we got to paddle around in a pool with a live alligator, and we learned all kinds of alligator facts that day. I want to come back to that. I want to come back to that in a second, but let's just kind of go back. Why do kids like alligators? What is so great about an alligator?
Well, it's a dinosaur you could see at the zoo, and it's one of the only, aside from birds, which, like, I don't know, when I was a kid, no one thought birds were dinosaurs until like way later, right? And everybody was like, alligators are dinosaurs. And I was like, that's fucking cool. Like, it's really cool that you could go to the zoo and see a dinosaur. Also, they do great stuff in cartoons.
They do great stuff. They're doing great stuff out there. The alligators are really...
They're doing great work in cartoons. There's the whole thing where a bird will live in its mouth to clean its teeth. You know, I don't know if that's true, but like they have a relationship there. You can use a stick to hold up an alligator's mouth if he's trying to attack you in a cartoon.
I love that that's the exact opposite of what supposedly you can do in real life. Not even supposedly. That's what they have, the strongest bite, but not whatever you call it when you open. They have a strong bite and a weak yawn. They can't open their mouth. So the way they subdue alligators is just taping their mouths shut like regular human hostages. They just go and they take duct tape and they wrap them around their snoot, and then they don't, they still can scratch and whip around.
Sure,
but that's it, which is wild. That's just nuts that this thing could definitely kill you in a heartbeat. But you could also kick its ass with something you bought at Staples,
You could, yeah. If you went to the UPS store and you snuck up on an alligator while he was sleeping, you could basically devastate 80% of his attacks. The other 20% of his attacks would be about the strength of the average, I would say, like, overweight fourth or fifth grader who has been reading about alligators a lot. Like,
Yeah, so we should
they'll
probably get
hit
this
you
out
with
of
a
the way.
tail, right?
Yeah.
And then, they got the little claws, but they're not, once the mouth is gone, what are they going to do? They can't even scratch their own nose.
No, they
It's
can't lick
ridiculous.
their elbows either. They're no. So we should talk about the obvious thing, the difference between alligators and crocodiles. You know how I guess you'll pair memories with trauma, or you're more likely to remember something if you learn it in like a very intense situation. We definitely had that in our alligator day, and I learned a lot of alligator facts, and I remembered the hell out of them because I didn't want to get in alligator trouble. But no, the difference between alligator and crocodile. Crocodiles are pointier in the front. They're more of an angular, pointy thing, and their eyes are pivoted slightly more forward. And crocodiles are also slightly more aggressive. Like they're more of an actual hunter predator type, whereas alligators are not. They're not scavengers. They're like lazy. They're opportunistic eaters, and so they have their eyes sticking out sideways, and they just pretty much just sit there and wait until something is available to eat, and then they eat it. And they both, both of the animals are very cool and can kick your ass. But if you were to if you look closely at a good cartoon, alligator crocodile shaped thing, it's probably a crocodile. If it's fighting James Bond Jr. or whatever, it's probably a crocodile.
They got a lot of the press. I don't know. I want to say if it's good press exactly, but like a lot of. But then alligators were really, and have been for a long time, doing the brunt of the work to get the press in real life, right? Like they do stuff. They're out there.
They're
doing
a street team. Yeah,
they're a street team.
They're constantly in the news. They're doing all sorts of viral stunts, and it also
I thought you said in the nude.
They're also in the nude. Sometimes, once in a while, an alligator comes out of the Everglades, and somebody, as a goof, has put panties on it. But otherwise, they're mostly nude animals. No, but so. They obviously like a lot of predatory animals, like a lot of extremely fucking cool looking animals. They get a bad rep, and people think that they're scary.
That's right.
Sure, they can be scary. They eat a kid now and then at Disney World or whatever.
They're nuisance animals.
Yeah, they're nude nuisance animals.
Yeah,
but no, they for the most part they kind of just mind their business. They're not really going out of their way to hunt people down or eat them. Except for Captain Hook, who had it coming. But there's definitely lots of media and pop culture that reinforces these beliefs. Some of it is cartoons where people put a stick in its mouth, and sometimes it's something like Lake Placid or what's the one? There's a Tommy Lee Jones one. I think it's just called Alligator. You know what I'm talking about? It's a Jaws knockoff.
Yes, that's a horror movie I watched like a year ago.
That one's so much fun.
It's great.
I love it because the tail end, no pun intended, the tail end, whereas Jaws, you barely see the shark. You see some of the shark and they're shooting barrels and shit at it. In this one, you get all these shots of an alligator, the giant alligator running around fucking shit up, and it's just wrecking like a model village. They just basically built a little replica train town and just released a regular alligator. And so it's just a normal alligator just walking around, just, probably a 1/18th scale replica of a small town,
like a bayou town,
and it keeps cutting to Tommy Lee Jones just shooting guns and stuff at it.
Just shooting in the air.
I appreciate that.
They knew most people would only watch that on like a 70s projector after like 7 beers and whatever they sold as weed back then. I was thinking about this too. Alligators are actually more polite than crocodiles because an alligator will see you later, and a crocodile is after a while, and that's a little mean to say to somebody. Like, see you later is a nice thing to say to somebody. But if you say, I'll see you after a while to somebody, you might never see them again.
In a while, crocodile. That's fair. I think that's one of the more intelligent things you could say in a zoological discussion about certain reptilia.
By two people who have zero scientific understanding of any of this stuff. Yes. I actually got nervous when you asked me to do an episode about alligators.
Because you were afraid you were going to say something stupid about alligators?
No, I knew I had that down pat or whatever.
What were you nervous about?
I don't know. I don't really know a lot about them. I know that they eat garbage. They'll eat anything. They'll eat any old
frozen
thing.
chicken, hot dogs.
Yep.
Panties, edible panties, whatever you throw at them.
No, it's that a lot of what I know about alligators is from actual lived, real, highly specific experiences with you in Florida across several days.
Let's back this up. So there's been two Florida adventures. One of them was very specifically alligator focused.
Yes.
We got assigned at our day jobs, which is not even worth going into, there was a film coming out called Crawl, directed by Alexander Aha, I think, and produced by Sam Raimi, and it is basically about a woman stuck in a house with alligators during a flood.
It's great.
And it is a wonderful time. It's a good time. I'm not just saying that because they sponsored this adventure, but they did also sponsor one of the best days of my life.
Yes.
They put us on a plane. They flew us to Florida. We went to go hang out with this guy named Chris Gillette. And Chris Gillette is of some fame from a reality show called Gator Boys.
Yeah.
And he is one of those, he's one of those real life crocodile hunter, crocodile Dundee type of dudes, but in the fine state of Florida. And his job is basically alligator rescue.
Yes.
And he has an entire alligator compound full of all sorts of other animals. I believe didn't he have a couple tigers? Did he have tigers?
Yeah, I think it's called a conservatory. It's not
conservatory.
A compound is
No, by definition, it is structurally a compound, because if it wasn't, I feel like a compound, it sounds tough. It sounds like it's got concrete and big fences. And thank God, because there's all sorts of deadly animals in there. It better be a compound.
No, it is like 8 soldiers away from a Far Cry outpost.
You could build that thing in Far Cry level creator, no problem.
Easily. Like if you had a bow and arrow, you could take one of the latches off one of the cages from a mile away, and like an animal you didn't know could be there would burst out of the cage and fight, 3 NPCs or whatever.
Yeah. So basically, we got flown there to shoot a promotional video for the film Crawl. The film Crawl was not out yet. They had a trailer floating around. We show up, and Chris he's not standoffish. He's a little reserved. He has his reservations for obvious reasons, because he's like, I watched the trailer for that movie that we're here to promote.
Yeah.
Doesn't really paint alligators in a very flattering light.
No.
So we proceeded to have a long talk with him about what alligators are like. And he gave us all this information about alligators and explained that most of the time when they attack people, it's because, I don't know, somebody's just been feeding them leftovers in their yard. Or they're messing with them. It's because of, the human encroachment of the matter and all that.
Yes. He has a very specific relationship with them because he works with them constantly and has for years and years. And like, he's very upfront about like, hey, this is not a pet. This is not a dog. Like, there was always a relationship of fear and respect and stuff like that.
His whole thing, he has lots of videos of him hanging out in a pool with alligators, handling alligators, doing stuff with alligators. And he specifically, he says, don't try this at home, but come hang out at my compound and try it with me, which is what we were there to do. The premise of this video was we were going to get in the water and be in the water with an alligator. We were going to get in a pool with a live alligator that Chris was kind of hanging out with and keeping tabs on. And the goal was, and this doesn't make any sense, this is the part of it that makes no sense whatsoever. While we were doing that, we were going to play Mortal Kombat 11 on the Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
That was this part. That's the part that really doesn't make any sense in this conversation. But that was part of it. So this was a service that Chris offered at his compound, and the whole thing was that you could go and hop in the water with him and this big bad motherfucker named Casper, who was a presumably very old alligator that Chris had been sort of working with, is a strange term for it, but that's what it was. And he would paddle around by you, and you could put on a weight belt and dunk to the bottom of the pool, and Casper would swim over you. And it's terrifying. How big was he? 7 feet long?
Yeah, he's like 7 feet long, and he weighs like a ton or something. I don't remember his exact weight, but I do remember that it was like we showed pictures to our wives. I think mine was either pregnant at the time or we had just had a baby. So either way, it was a conversation, because it was like she was like, I need you to have your arms. Like you need to help me hold this kid as she gets bigger for the rest of her life. And so it was a talk. It was definitely like, and I don't know where I was in my head to just jump to yes on that, but I have this weird part of me where I'm just like, if I say no to this, I'm gonna, like, it'll be one of those things for the rest of my life where I'm like, what if, and I don't like having a lot of those. So for this one specifically, like, he had an Instagram page that had some pictures of, like, it was mostly like influencers and models and stuff like that would go, and just people who thought it was, adventure seekers or whatever, right? Like people who thrill hunters or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, this looks controlled, and like what a lot of it was like you put on a weight belt, you sink to the bottom of, it's not necessarily like it's called a pool, but it was almost like this man-made pond almost, because
it was an enclosure, a lagoon.
Yeah.
It wasn't
compound.
designed. It wasn't designed for people to play in. It was designed for an alligator to live in. But it had the trappings of a pool, so there was an odd familiarity there. But then you'd kind of get a feel for it and realize that, oh, there's no ladders, and one part of it is unnecessarily deep. I don't think there was a deep end. I think there was a part where it was a little bit deeper, but it was
there was shallow parts, but like the middle of it just got really deep. And then there were also one of the other tip-offs that this wasn't a pool was that outside of Casper the alligator, who's in it, there was like 4 or 5 other alligator friends just kind of sitting to the side. And Chris's partner, Gabby, Nicole, who's also amazing, incredibly smart, incredibly funny, just both the sweetest people, both vegetarians, which is amazing. Like they care so much about animals, and they're both like in fantastic shape. Like it bucks anything you could ever hear about like anybody being like, oh, you're not an alpha if you don't do this. It's like this dude wrangles alligators and eats salads.
We're hanging out with him. We're kind of, we're talking. There was also a lot of setup because this whole thing was shot with like drones and cameras and steady cams and stuff. And we're just kind of being, doofus on camera, ponces or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're talking to Chris, and he's standing there, and he's just wearing like a t-shirt and, pants and flip-flops. Flip-flops I remember very specifically because you would think...
You can, if you see on Instagram, like there's tons of videos of alligators just kind of hanging out next to him and slowly opening their maw or whatever, and he's got his feet dangling out and stuff like that. He's figured it out. He's got the system down with them. He's always on his toes, literally, but...
An alligator, like, nipped at him, and he kind of, like, kicked it. Not like in a mean way, but in, like, it's an alligator way.
Yeah,
I think when he was, without skipping a beat, he's in the middle of having a conversation with us, and I think he like maybe sort of stomped near it or something.
Yeah,
but
he didn't contact it. Like he kind of like swung his foot in the air, gave it a little like.
He
whoosh.
didn't look at it, and it was completely out of the corner of his eye.
Yep.
And for the record, his eyes are in the front of his head. They're not like alligator eyes, which is more to the side, so that he can see what's going on to his peripheral. Like he's a normal man. But yeah, he just kicked this thing and got out of the way, which was very impressive. And our I don't know, the funny thing that cracked me up about this is we're like, oh, do you work out or whatever? He's like, nah, man, I wrangle alligators every day. And we're like, that checks out. That's probably why you're pretty shredded,
Yep.
But like lovely, pleasant guy. And the way the day proceeded is we kind of gradually, I feel like, massaged the tone of the video, and we're like, maybe we won't come in swinging and being like, alligators, the most deadly reptile to ever walk the earth. And we'll be like, maybe alligators have a bad rep. If you want to see that bad rep in action, check out Crawl in theaters, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but here at blah, 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 you can blah, 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 blah in real life.
And we got some animal facts in there, but he gave us a nice, a nice explanation of the world of reptilian alligators and all that.
It is worth pointing out, and this probably doesn't happen often in Florida in terms of safety, but the state of Florida, shortly after we were there, not because of us, but because they probably were just like, what is going on over there? Reached out and was like, hey, Chris, you got to put a net in between your patrons and the vicious 1-ton dinosaurs that they're swimming with. So we were some of the last people to go in there, raw dog or whatever, right?
Yeah. No, that was the first word that came to mind for me too. I don't know
good.
what else
I'm glad I said it.
There was no prophylactic thing in there. We were in
the nude.
So yeah, we got in the water with the alligator and Chris, and Chris I don't think he didn't have any like sticks or weapons or anything. He was just kind of hanging out. Yeah. He wore a special like wetsuit that had it had a like copper wiring throughout it, and I remember he like lit up because I was like, oh, like a Faraday cage, and he was like, yes, like a Faraday cage. Nobody knows what a Faraday cage is. And he was just, I don't know, it was I feel like he's probably, he wrangles alligators in the Everglades. He probably doesn't talk about Faraday cages that often, except with occasionally conspiracy theories.
No, like the raptors in Jurassic Park, we kind of tested the fences with that, and we found out he's like a huge nerd and plays a ton of video games, and like we were geeking out with him about video games in between everything else. And it was like, hey, if we're gonna die today, like it's been it's been a fun day.
No, my favorite thing, we're like, what do you like to play? He's like, oh man, the new Doom was really good. He's like, I messed with Titanfall too, but it was just too slow. And I just remember thinking like, well, yeah, you put your reflexes to a pretty, you kind of run those through the ringer if you're fighting actual alligators on a regular basis. Fair enough. But no, we hop in the water. We're wearing the dumbest wetsuits. We're wearing, I think they were like $11 knockoff Lycra wetsuits that looked vaguely like Scorpion and Sub-Zero. They were. I
got them like 2 for $30 on Amazon, and they were. I genuinely couldn't tell you what purpose they served besides to get mocked, because like there's no reason to wear them. Like the whole point of a wetsuit is like it's cold in the water. Like where you and I live in California, we live in this like cursed part of California where we're right near the ocean, but when you go swimming in it, it's freezing here. Right, because it's like in the middle of the state or whatever, in the Bay Area. Whereas like if you go down at Santa Barbara or whatever, it's gorgeous. You can jump in all the time. So with these things, like they wouldn't keep you warm, they wouldn't keep you safe, they wouldn't do anything. But they were bright blue and bright green, and we put them on.
Yeah, they maybe would keep you from getting a sunburn, but we were in the shade anyway, so we just looked silly. Chris is wearing this Faraday cage like tactical camo wetsuit. He's on top of this, and we're in there, and we have our Nintendo Switch gaming consoles, and we're playing Mortal Kombat, and I just remember thinking, when you're in like a really cool experience and you want to take out your phone to get a picture of it, and you're like, no, I should be in the moment, I shouldn't be at a screen. Imagine if you weren't even taking a picture of it, you're just playing Mortal Kombat. Like the whole point of a Switch is you can play the game whenever, wherever you want. And we're like, I'm gonna play when I'm in the water with alligators, and that's the whole point of the video. Which is weird because at some point I also got sort of invested in the match we were playing, and briefly forgot that there was an alligator. I didn't forget, but I wasn't thinking about it. And then I kind of glanced over when it just went swimming by. Yeah,
I mean, Chris was deliberately sort of like kiting the alligator to kind of go past us in the shot and go around and stuff like that. And so like for the video, you and I were standing in the shallow part holding Nintendo Switches, and this alligator was effectively circling us, right? But that's not at all the service that they provide there. So after we did that, he was like, do you guys want to do the real thing? And we were like, we asked our producer, like, Dad, can we go in the water with the alligator? And then it was like, I think we were both like, oh, this is real now. But then that thing kicked into my head. Not necessarily adrenaline, but like the thing where I was like, if I don't do this, and I was like right here on the front steps of it, right on the precipice of this thing, I'm gonna regret it forever. So we decided to do it, and the thing is, you wear goggles and you swim next to it, and you can go underwater and look up at it.
It's the opposite of jumping over one, which is also not a good idea.
Yeah. So you
dunk down, and then he paddles over you, and you look up and see his big white scaly tummy.
Yeah,
yeah. And the one rule is don't freak out.
Don't freak out.
Be cool.
Don't touch him. Don't
be cool like Fonzie. Don't do any floundering animal stuff.
And I remember specifically, like, I went underwater twice underneath Casper the alligator, and the first time I think I nailed it, and I looked up and just saw an alligator float over my head. And I have that video in my brain forever now, which is just like one of those things I can just like, no matter what, I can be like, yeah, you did that. Holy crap. But then the second time I did that thing where like you go underwater, but you don't sink enough. And then you kind of bop back up and then bop back down. And I kind of move my arms around. It's sort of, and I think you filmed that on my phone. And there is definitely a look in Chris's face that's like, oh, that's too much movement. You're gonna get fucking torn the fuck apart. Because the thing is with an alligator, this is the thing I do know, is they don't just like bite you and eat you, right? Like they bite you and then they twist in a circle as fast as possible, and they kind of
they do a fatality. They do a death roll.
Yeah, they do like a death roll, and they try to drown you and like disorient you and shatter you and all that. Like they're fucking metal as hell. Like they go hard in the paint when they want to kill you. They don't just bite you. And so that was like one of those things where I was like, fuck, don't touch him. Don't touch his little feet, and don't touch his belly. Don't fucking pop your head up in the wrong spot and bonk into his penis hole or whatever the fuck he has up there, his little urethra or whatever.
Cloaca. Be nice.
Vivolvo, or I don't know what it's called.
That's why they keep going into the swamp and putting panties on these things. No one wants to see that. They got to put it away.
I wanted to make sure you got to say cloaca today. I know you have a page-a-day calendar that you tear off once a day when you get to say.
This episode of This Thing Rules is brought to you by cloacas. They're weird little shit pissers they got on reptiles, birds, and all sorts of other amphibians. Check them out. Check out cloacas.com. Don't go there. Don't go. I don't know what's there. Don't go there.
If we ever got sponsored by them or moray eels, I would be like, Max, I know you don't feel good about. Yeah, I know you don't feel good about getting this money. How would moray eels? Well, that's like when you see.
I'm gonna just go out. We're not gonna do an episode on those pieces of shit.
Are you ever watching TV and they're like they'll just be like, walnuts, they're great and you should eat them, and you're like, and they're like paid for by walnuts.
Yeah, no. If we want to do the direct line here, avocados. They'll be like, avocados. What? Look at them. They are.
They have commercials here for avocados, and at
free
the
ball.
end, yeah, free ball inside. At the end, it says avocados. This is brought to you by the Avocado Society of America. And then it'll be like, I'm Joe Biden. I approve this message. You're like, why are you here?
It's so weird. But no, do you know what they call avocados in some places?
What?
They call them alligator pears.
Is that true?
I'm not messing with you. That's the thing. They call them alligator pears.
You're not messing that up?
I messed that up, but I'm not messing with you. No, I always love that because I mean, it's one of those things where, what is it? We call them pineapples, but everywhere else they're like lanana of some variety. Like it's same thing with the metrics. It's like metric systems and pineapples is one thing we just completely screw up.
If we talk about avocados for another second on this alligator episode, the cloaca company is not going to pay us.
They're not going to pay us.
They're not.
Cloaca Co.
I want to be up to my neck in big cloaca money.
Do you know what the name alligator means?
No.
Alligator is from the Spanish for el lagarto, which is just the lizard.
Oh, I thought
which
it was
is just I don't know.
I thought it was because they were invented by Alison Guittaro.
Yeah, Alison Guittaro. Yeah, that's what it was. No, I don't know. I thought they were pretty cool. We wouldn't have done this if we didn't think they were pretty cool. If they were like, "Do you want to go hang out with anteaters?" We're like, "No." Maybe we probably would have. I think any animal would be like, that's more interesting than most things people do.
I don't have enough to say about them. I feel like anteaters take up a lot of space for something that does exactly as expected. Like, I don't think there's a lot of... And if you're a zookeeper and you're listening to the show, feel free to chime in and let us know we're wrong. Hit us up on Patreon or text me or whatever. I don't think any of you.
If you're trying to get rid of ants and you want to use something that looks like a broom, you know what's better is just a regular broom.
Yeah. What if my broom stunk and shit and was fucking huge and then just walked around all day?
Okay. So yeah. I love that we're just like, hey, let's talk about why we love alligators, why alligators rule, but also let's shit on a bunch of other animals. Let's do that.
Fucking anteaters just catching a stray in the alligator episode is not fair.
What's your favorite alligator in pop culture? Or
anteaters
crocodile?
Have that 50 Cent meme where he's like, why are they talking about me? That's anteaters listening to this show right now. My favorite, I love you mentioned the Captain Hook one. I think that that's a great one because you could stand on his mouth. When yeah, that's the thing. You walk off the plank or whatever. Or if you're in the water, you can jump so high out of fear that you can land on his mouth, and it'll be open up like that, and you can put one foot on the top of his mouth and one foot on the bottom. I think that's great.
Is it the same one they turn into a clock in Hook?
Yes.
The clock at the end of Hook. I remember the first time I saw Hook, I think I had very low expectations. And I was 7 or 8, so those expectations were shattered in the best ways possible, unlike most critics who saw that movie and hate it. People hate that movie. I don't know. That's a fun movie. It's a really fun movie. But the whole crocodile thing at the end of I guess that's a crocodile. But it's just the clock falls on Captain Hook, and I just remember that being scary. Like, I just remember being surprised at how frightening that is.
Oh, yeah, that is a crocodile.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of my favorite alligators is a crocodile.
I know, for the sake of conversation, they're pretty interchangeable.
For the sake of conversation, I really do like the one in Resident Evil 2, and I'm really glad they put him in the remake. It's funny.
That's right. He's awesome.
He's great because they were just like, what would a zombie alligator look like? And they're just like, well, we'll just cover him in like moss. Because
I didn't even know he was supposed to be a zombie. I thought he was just a regular alligator.
I mean, I think why would that be there?
Because he's in the sewer.
But he's gigantic.
Yeah, I don't know. There's sewer. I just love that the idea that that's a.
Is he not a zombie?
That's an I love the idea of an unrelated horror element being in a horror situation. You know,
the wiki fandom for this alligator says that alligators have been known to be infected with the T virus, and a number of individual cases exist. Okay, well, you can't just say that. That's not true. I mean, that's true in the context of this game, but that's not real.
Okay, well,
we're using the word exist pretty liberally.
That's a good
here.
alligator.
Yeah.
I love the one in Lake Placid. Lake Placid's a fun time.
Great alligator movie.
I grew up in a town weirdly enough where Oliver Platt lived, who was he was in that movie. He plays the big game hunter who shows up in a helicopter to kill the alligator, which I think is a saltwater crocodile canonically. And then it's that Betty White's been feeding in her backyard or whatever. But it was the lake that I went to as a kid, which was actually called Cream Hill Lake, which I don't like the sound of that as an adult, but it was I was very skittish about lake weeds. And you know that thing where I don't know, I went through a whole phase where I hated swimming. I just didn't like getting in the water. Part of it because I was like a chubby boy and the other kids would make fun of me. Part of it was always swimming in this lake and there was lake weeds and dock spiders and scary shit like that. But then there'd be that thing where you're swimming and you're having a good time and you're like, your brain's like, what if you thought about alligators right now? And I just go, oh no, and just get like sort of panicky, you know, like just sort of like, I don't like it. Just get me the fuck out of here. And yeah, that movie came out right around the time that I was extremely over going in that water. And I just remember being like Lake Placid's a good time. I like that. I like that crocodile a lot. I think it's a good one. Saltwater crocodiles are fucking cool. They are.
They're really cool.
I think they're like the S tier of real life alligators. I remember I found a book at my uncle's house a million years ago that was just a big ass like coffee table photo book about saltwater crocodiles. And I remember it having some of the scariest photos I've ever seen where it was just those things in proportion to regular people. That like fully established how big they are. Very frightening book. And I was, you know, utterly fascinated by it. But
my Italian grandfather had this encyclopedia set that he brought from Italy to America that was in his apartment that we visited all the time in Jersey City growing up. And there was a picture in there that for the longest time I was like, is this real? And it was a baby boy sitting in a gigantic T-Rex footprint. And it was like a photo. And I was like, how did they do that? Is that like I was too young to put together, and I was just like, what, do they have different info in Italy? Like what's like I didn't have, you know, it was one of those things where you don't have enough information, so your child brain fills in the blanks. But yeah, I was just like, so wait, if that was that what kind of beast made that? Because I know it wasn't. And then I was like, maybe there was a huge alligator that was like the size of like a truck that put its little, you know, its funny little feet down, and this baby sat in it. And I was like, who's watching this baby? Why are they taking a picture of it? What they should save it. Something's going to happen. And it's not real. None of it's real. I know. I love
that child logic science or whatever, where you like you have enough facts to question things, but not enough to fully round things out. I remember as a kid having a sort of hypothesis that dragons existed in our folklore because people saw some of the last dinosaurs and didn't know what they were.
Oh, I like that.
Which is like Flintstones timeline, but you know, in reality, maybe they saw an alligator or a Komodo dragon or something.
They probably
like
did.
That. Yeah,
I mean, I bet you the first person that saw the alligator and ran back to tell Merlin or whatever, you know, was probably all fucked up about it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
He definitely thought that shit was a dragon until Alice and Guitarro came around and named them. Like no one knew what to call them.
Yeah.
I hope everyone learned a lot today.
I learned a lot. I mean, I knew most of this stuff already, but I love talking about alligators. I love it.
Why would
you know who doesn't like talking about alligators anymore?
Who?
Is my wife. She doesn't want to hear me talk about alligators anymore. Anytime I start going off about alligators, and most people want to hear that cool story about the time I got to meet an alligator.
Yeah, I do.
But my wife is sick of hearing about it, and she goes, "Oh, here he goes again." And I cannot wait to be married to this woman for another however long until I'm dead or whatever, because I know it's just gonna be the most annoying like old couple thing. Did I ever tell you about the time that I met an alligator? And she'd be like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, Jesus Christ!" And she'd walk out of the room.
You have the pictures and your favorites, and you're like, you open them up and you're showing everybody. Get a little PowerPoint together for the next time you have people over.
We should get more photos. I actually pulled the problem is I pull up that video and it's a cool video. There's so much shit in there that just didn't make it in. You know, there's so many cool shots of us with the alligators. We're in there in our horrible wetsuits. Also, it's like if you want to be, I don't know, for us, we're like, hey, you know, I got to actually swim with an alligator. It was really cool. Do you have a video of it? Yeah, here it is. I'm wearing the worst wetsuit you've ever seen, and I'm playing a Switch. So it's like, yeah, I got to. I actually met. I met Mike Tyson, and he let me punch him in the face. And you're like, oh, let me see that. And you're like, yeah, but just heads up. Before in the picture, I'm in the middle of pissing my pants. So it's just it kind of negates the coolness of the picture. But
well, here's the problem. The video was sponsored by Jimmy John's, so there's a huge sandwich blocking the punch. Yeah, that was a walk or a swim or a crawl, I guess you could say.
It was a crawl. There was the other adventure, which was
that's right. So that one we played Mario Kart on Switch while on hovercrafts in the Florida Everglades.
The Florida Everglades.
And that was at a gator park, which is,
that was at it was at Sawgrass Recreational Area. They didn't say anything about alligators in the thing.
But we got to hold baby alligators that they use little tape on.
You're talking about that alligator situation.
Yeah.
I meant when we went on the hovercrafts.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right, no, but when we went on the hovercrafts and we're zipping around in the water.
Yes, but you have to remember, that was a 2-day shoot because the first day it rained, and then we just shot a bunch of extra footage at their little, they had a stinky little zoo area. Remember
they did have a stinky zoo. That's right,
yeah.
We had the stinky
and
zoo.
So it was you, me, and Megaran, the rapper. Mm-hmm. And we were hanging out, and we were holding baby alligators, and I think there was
if this story wasn't true, it would sound increasingly false. Just
yes.
because, and then there was a rapper there, and the porcupines, and
so the next day it was nice out. If anyone who's ever been to Florida know that you could be having the most beautiful day of your life, and all of a sudden there's a Category 5 hurricane for 8 minutes, and then it stops, and then you're like, all right, back at it. And I think it was specifically designed by the Walt Disney Corporation to sell ponchos. That's my dinosaurs don't have feathers conspiracy theory. That's one of the two things I'm Donald Trump about. So we were there. It was raining. They were like, no, can't shoot it today, but you can hang out at the zoo with the stinky wet animals and hold the little guys and stuff like that. The next day, we went on the hovercraft together, and several very funny things happened. So I was driving and you were sitting behind me, not shotgun. I don't know what you call that when a man sits.
I think it's there's a word for it. It's frowned upon. the motorcycle enthusiasts have a word for it. It's a mean name for a lady dog.
What is it? Butt riders? What is
a mean name for a lady dog is butt riders? No, they call it riding bitch.
Oh, didn't I did not. I
was like your old lady while you were on that hog.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what that was.
You had your arms around me with a Switch.
With a Nintendo Switch, and I was playing Mario. I was riding
hair blowing right past my hair into your hair. The wind going
riding that Rainbow Road with Toad.
So we get out on the open water. We have what's called a chase vehicle behind us, which is another hovercraft. And this one has two people on it. One of them's operating a drone, so they're filming the whole thing. And you and me whip through. I'm straight up power sliding because we're trying to do stuff that you can do in Mario Kart. So I'm taking these hard turns, and it's some of the probably the happiest I've ever been. It's up there in the top. The swimming with the alligator thing was surreal and insane and terrifying, but this was just pure raw thrill, right? This is all right, I get why people live in this state, and I get why when they get out of situations like that, they're like, we got to keep doing that on the highway and at 7-Eleven. We need to still keep chasing that high. If they're making a whole game out of it, it's called GTA 6.
Also, I want to clarify, this is a hovercraft with a full-on cushion and everything. This is not one of those fan boats. No disrespect to the fan boats. They're cool. I'm a fan, but not as big of a fan as they got in the back of those boats. The hovercrafts, though, holy shit, what a cool vehicle.
Yes.
It's got a big cushion on there.
If you want to ride one of those, head down to Florida and go to Only Fan Boats. That's a place that's open. They will not have any hovercrafts. It's only fan boats. So go down there and throw some money, shake some money.
I've always thought hovercrafts were incredibly cool. We'll probably do an episode on hovercrafts because they fucking rule.
They're great.
They kick so much. You know what an LCAC is?
No.
No one does, but it's a hovercraft and it's awesome. We're going to talk about hovercraft some other time. But no, we rode the hovercraft around, whipping all over the place. We did a power slide through these really tall reeds, and
I was like, this will look cool and be fun. I didn't know that they would fucking explode into a million pieces, right? So they explode in like, these are like the reeds you see in like 70s cartoons and Winnie the Pooh and shit like that. The big brown ones, they look like corn dogs.
You mean cattails?
Cattails. Yeah, we ripped through like fucking 70 of those, right? Like a whole bunch of these, fucking bayou corn dogs or whatever they are. And all of a sudden, you start yelling in my ear and you're like, hey! And I'm like, what? And you're like, we're covered in spiders. And I look down and there's literally hundreds of these little yellow spiders on us. Like it looked like that. What was that fucking Uncharted 3 where Nate goes through the tunnel full of spiders? And it's just like, this is straight up Indiana Jones shit. We're on it. We're on a hovercraft covered in spiders and I'm still whipping full speed and I'm just doing this.
I think we both cheered.
Yeah. We were like, this is amazing.
I think I was like, we're covered in spiders. You were like, yeah. And
then
I was like, yeah, I hate spiders, but
like,
whatever.
Oh no. Yeah, you really don't like spiders, so I'm proud of you for making
my
do
love
that.
of hovercrafts is
like berserk.
I love hovercrafts so much that I didn't even the spiders didn't even bother me.
So anyway, we ran out of gas in the middle of the Everglades.
We didn't run out of gas.
Yes, we did.
No, you went on some bushes.
Oh, I got stuck.
So the problem is the hovercraft has to have a complete seal. The cushion has to be flat on the water or whatever it's touching. And you did the equivalent of like hitting a curb or something. Like you drove on some plants and then we went up a little bit on something. All the air went out of the vehicle's panties or whatever.
For full transparency, I deliberately drove into as much stuff as possible on purpose. This was not like hitting a curb. Okay, that's an accident. What I did was on purpose. I didn't know that about hovercrafts.
You did the equivalent of if you drove your vehicle up on the median and both the wheels were hanging down and you were just like spinning your wheels. Like the hovercraft basically, it looked like somebody deflated it, which it does automatically if it stops, but there was no pressure coming out. So we were stuck there and they had to come out on like a bigger one and literally throw us a rope.
Yeah.
And there was I love that we are in like we wind up in the coolest, most like fucking awesome like action movie scenarios, and then there's just the dorkiest moments where like again I'm playing Mario Kart and then they come by on a rope and they're like, you boys stuck over there, and they threw us this rope and it took them like 5 tries to throw us the rope and us to catch it because
I don't even know how they found. Now keep in mind this is alligator infested water. So we are in the middle of this area. I drove over all this really tall grass, right? Got stuck and couldn't get out. And they had to find us somehow. I don't even know how they found us. And pulled up and threw the rope at us. And we held on to it. They pulled us back into the open water and we successfully, hovercrafted back home or whatever. And then when the footage came in, we were watching the drone footage and you could very clearly see that there's one part. We didn't know this while we're going 30 miles an hour or whatever the fuck in the hovercraft, that an alligator was swimming underneath our hovercraft. And there's a part where you see like we're going straight ahead, he's coming in from the left, and we just go right over him. Like I think he swam right underneath. I didn't feel it. I think I would have known if we had hit one. But yeah, he was right there. And it's like, so for that to happen, and also in the same 5 minutes, us to get covered in spiders and then get stuck in the middle of like this very tall grass, which is just like, how do we get out of here? Like an alligator very easily could have picked us off one by one right there. Like honestly,
that's why they call it the Sawgrass Recreational Park, because Sawgrass sure did. Yep. No, I mean that was the weird thing is we're reviewing the footage and it's all the drone footage and we're like, there were a lot of alligators, but you didn't see them. It's kind of
yes.
I guess this is a bizarre arachnophobe thought that I have a lot, but I'm sometimes just like, wonder how many spiders there are in this immediate vicinity. I'm just, if you were to do like a magic spell, like, Control A spiders or whatever, and just put them all in one pile, like where are they? They're somewhere. They're there. Spiders are all over.
It's not something I think about often. It's interesting because I know that's like it's like a thing for you. But it's probably something I should think about more. Yeah, I should split the difference between not thinking about it at all and worrying about it constantly. Like I should be always a little aware that there could be.
You should just think about spiders sometimes.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a normal thing to do. I don't know.
I should,
The difference: a spider can disappear. It can hide in the tiniest little crack. An alligator is the size of a futon or whatever. Like it's a big goddamn thing. Not a futon. I don't know, like a foam roller for stretching out your back muscles or whatever. Like it's a big
alligator.
An alligator.
An alligator is the size of a futon.
Depends on the alligator. They're big.
Well,
they're big motherfuckers. They're big.
I had the
animals.
futon and it's not even. It's like a shit futon. The ones where like just the sides go up in college.
This episode is presented by Shit Futons. Head outside and drive around for a while and see if you can find a shit futon near you.
Do you want a futon that doesn't open up into anything but just sort of just like shrugs at the end of the day and becomes a bed? It's crazy how much sponsorship money there is in podcasts, dude.
Really? It's wild. Lucrative. No, but
cloacas,
you would think
anteaters.
You would think that there'd be, I don't know, you'd think that you would see an alligator, but their whole deal is that they are very good at hiding. They're good at looking like logs. They're good at looking like nothing harmful, and that's how they eat people or kids or
I've only lived in like New York, New Jersey, and California, so I don't think about them very often. If I lived in Florida, I wouldn't trust a bench. There's nothing you could show me that was long and still that I wouldn't for a second have to be like, I don't know, maybe they make, purple alligators. And it's like, no, dude, that's a surfboard. Like it would take me a while to like I don't think I would sleep with one eye open. Both eyes open on my sides of my head or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't trust it.
The funny thing is, you talk to Australians about spiders. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, is everything made of spiders and on fire over there? And they're like, how's the mass shootings going over there? How's your healthcare or whatever?
Like,
they're like, it's really not that bad. I mean, once in a while you meet a huntsman spider. It's terrifying. Mm-hmm. Never going to that country, by the way. But like, they're ultimately like,
they make it pretty easy. It's so
grossly,
far.
They're like, it's grossly over exaggerated. It's not a big deal. Like we don't have spider fire drills or whatever, or fire spider drills. Meanwhile, you talk to somebody from Florida and you're like, is it true there's alligators everywhere? And they're like, oh God, yeah. No, all the time. Fucking yeah. Here's a picture of my aunt fighting an alligator. Here's a picture of my old dorm room, which is 80% alligators or whatever. Here's a picture of the time
a picture of my dog, but an alligator ate it. Like stuff like that.
There used to be 4 or 5 alligators in the trunk of my car at any given time. Like you
have a Pomeranian named after a food. Like you wouldn't have a dog if you lived in Florida.
No.
Yeah. An alligator would have a lunch.
Yeah.
And still be hungry.
It's amazing.
You know what's funny?
But they're cool. They're cool animals. I don't know. The fact that we have dangerous dinosaurs roaming the streets sometimes.
I think it's cool that snakes have that thing where they can eat something. We should do an episode on snakes, by the way.
Totally. I love snakes.
They're great. It's angry ropes. A snake will eat something and then that shape like goes and it becomes that shape in its belly. Alligators don't really have that, right? They just they'll just eat a thing and then they just sit there and they're like, bah.
I think it's because they rip it apart.
Damn.
Yeah. No, I was watching. Oh man, I guess it was actually an old Crocodile Hunter episode. I don't know why I was like, my 3-year-old should see this. Saltwater crocodiles, hell yeah. He just straight up had like a whole pig, and he just like threw it in the crocodile pond, and the crocodile.
Was the pig alive?
No. It was a dead pig, but he whooped it in. It was a large, decently sized pig, right. Whatever. And these were saltwater crocodiles, I think, and he threw it in there, and it. When you pull a drumstick off of a roast chicken or turkey or whatever,
yeah,
and it just pops right off, and that's because that's a small thing that's been cooked. Mm-hmm. That dude did that with the entire half the pig. Like he just the crocodile, not the crocodile hunter. He just grabbed it with his mouth and went, and it tore in half, and it's like, oh, that's what they do to their food.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No, they use those jaws to eat the stuff. A snake is funny because they're just like, I'm not chewing that, no sir. And they just...
I'm sleepy.
I would watch a game show where they fed big snakes different objects and had people guess what was in there.
That would be one of my favorite shows in the world. And if they got like Snoop Dogg to voice all the snakes, and it was just like, I bet you think it's a bowling ball, but it's not. And they're like, it's actually a basketball. And I'm like, fuck. And I lose $100. And they interview me before, and then I'm just like, you come up with some story, and you're like, my father's been missing for 20 years, and if I get this money, I'll be able to track him down.
A good place to sort of test out that game show as a party game would probably be Florida, because they also have a problem with ball pythons. The ball pythons are out there. You know why they call them ball pythons, right? They're always eating basketballs and bowling balls.
They love them. They're
Anyway,
like, is that a big orange? Oh, man.
sweet, sweet fruit.
Tricked again by these motherfucking
Well,
oranges.
much like those pythons, I think we had a ball today, but now I believe it's time to say,
See you later.
in a while, crocodile.
No, see you later, alligator.
Go fuck yourself, large lizard.
This episode of This Thing Rules is brought to you by cloacas, the tiny holes that some animals pee from that are gross and shitty and weird.
If you don't know what a cloaca is, do yourself a favor and don't type that word into the computer because it's not. You don't need to know about that. I'm sorry for putting that word in your head. Here's another word to put in your head. Patreon. Head to patreon.com/thisthingrules. Kick us a buck or two. We're making more episodes of this show. We hope you thought it ruled. We had a good time talking about alligators and hovercrafts and snakes, and we'll probably talk about those things more in the future. But until next time, that's the end of the show.